So it's September and you have just spent all summer long sweating, dying, and you're like hot and you're gross and the garden looks like crap and you're tired. Well, enter fall gardening, right? Because if you don't start planting out stuff now, it's gonna be done. And you might be ready for it to be done. You might be so over it. But when I tell you, if you can just hold on just a little bit longer, fall gardening is one of my favorite times of the year to garden. You have less pest pressure, it's not as hot and gross, and the varieties are just easier to grow naturally. And I mean, come on, like, who doesn't love fall? It's the perfect time to be out in the garden, hanging out, doing like your little gardening thing. So this is 10 varieties that you can actually plant in September if you are in zone 7. Now, all these I'm gonna encourage you, plant them out a little early. Like, we're not talking September 30th. We're talking like when you watch this video, sit your little butt down and plant, okay? Because let me tell you, you're running out of time if you wanna do these, but all of these are magical. Truly one of my favorite things to grow in the garden. So you can see I've got a tray of lovely, lovely stuff. We got some kale, we got some cabbage, we got more kale, and then we got some broccoli, some Brussels. So we are getting ready. Pretty much any kind of brassica we're gonna be talking about, but I love to transplant into the garden pretty much all my brassicas. But we're gonna talk today about whether you direct sow, do you transplant, what do you do, all right? So we're gonna go through all these varieties one at a time, and I am gonna set you up to succeed and hit your fall garden goals, okay? Let's go. Number one, first and foremost, we got carrots, all right? I love me some carrots, and they could not be easier to grow in the fall. So I think people struggle, they really struggle with carrots because they do not like to germinate. And getting nice, even germination can be a big old pain in the rear. But there are lots of methods, lots of little tricks. Have you seen where like on like YouTube videos like mine, they'll be like taking the carrot seeds, they sow the carrot seeds, then they put down like a wooden board on top and water the wooden board, holding in, locking in moisture, and then they lift it up and it's like, wow, glorious carrot germination. I don't really care how you do it. There are loads of videos to teach you how to germinate carrots. All I'm gonna tell you is that this is a good time to plant out some carrots, okay? And then what's really amazing about these is if you plant out carrots, direct sow, all right? We're not transplanting carrots. Anything that's a root crop, I do not recommend transplanting. So direct sow, right into the garden. What's really cool about carrots, especially in zone 7, is as winter comes, a lot of times those first waves of frost and stuff, they're not gonna affect these carrots. They're gonna be fine, they're gonna just power through. And you can actually store your carrots just right in the ground pretty much all winter long, and then just harvest up the carrots as you need them for your kitchen. So the garden can act as a root cellar for you when you grow carrots in the fall. That's stinking amazing and super duper cool. Am I right? I'm right. Totally right. Next up, we've got beets. So I've got these, I think they're Tiago, Caggio, who knows? I have no idea how to pronounce this. So if you want to tell me in the comments, like give me the phonetics, that would be great. And then we have golden beets. And I like golden beets a little bit better, mainly because I can pronounce golden beets. I cannot pronounce this one, but these ones are really, really cute. They're so pretty. But anyways, this is a great time to plant beets out into your garden, as well as Swiss chard, which is in the beet family. But beets are incredibly healthy for you, so beneficial. Just like carrots though, we're gonna direct sow these in the garden. So we're just gonna seed them right out in the garden. We are not gonna start these in tray flats. If you see someone doing that, they're unhinged, crazy behavior. Hopefully they're growing them for microgreens at that point. But anyway, super great for the soil as well. They kind of like, you know, spread up the soil, break up the soil. So it's great crop. Grow your beets. Plant your beets. And we got kale. Now, kale, I started in the tray, but you can also direct seed kale. So whichever you want to do. But I like starting in the tray because what I find is that I do still have quite a bit of pest pressure at this time of year in the garden. So by starting it in the tray, I'm controlling that pest pressure while I let that plant get a lot more established. And then I can transplant it out into my garden, give it a really good start. And then at that point, I can easily put like a little drop cloth over the kale, other brassicas, to keep cabbage moths and other bugs away from these items without burning them up because it's just so freaking hot. So I always transplant pretty much all my kale, my cabbages, my brassicas. But what I love about kale, so each type of kale is different, right? This is a scarlet kale. It is really pest resistant. I love the scarlet for this. Like, there are other types of kale, like dinosaur kale. It gets hammered with the bugs. They love it. But this guy, not so much. So I like to plant this, and what's amazing about kale is it's very winter hardy. So it'll survive some frost, it'll keep going and growing, especially with light protection, and you can just continually harvest the bottom leaves. Just keep snapping those bottom leaves, and they will grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, and you will have delicious kale greens well into the winter months if you plant your kale now. Do not wait. It needs to get established to survive those cold dips. But once it's established, it will survive those cold dips, and you'll have just so many delicious leafy greens, and it's so good for you. Also, kale is one of those crops that's definitely a dirty dozen crop, so growing it yourself is maybe super critical. And I'm realizing that this video might be more impactful if I could like show you kale in the garden, but I really can't. I can show you kale, but it's not in the garden. Next up, we got radishes. Okay, whether you like them, don't like them, radishes are a great little crop, especially for the fall. They don't mind the cold one little bit, and they grow fast, okay? So you can have radishes in like 30 days, depending on the variety. Now, I am growing this cool Chinese red meat radish. It's giving watermelon radish vibes. Think it's really nifty swifty, and they get quite large. But you can grow any kind of radish you want, and this is a great time to plant radish. And they make really good companion plants for a lot of different crops. So I would definitely do this. Just like all root vegetables, I'm going to recommend direct sowing. Direct sow the radish. There's only one root vegetable that I don't really recommend direct sowing in the garden, and that would be onions. If you are like trying to start onions from seed, I recommend though you plant your radishes straight in the garden. Do not transplant the radishes, because what happens, they have those big roots and they're like, ow, why'd you transplant me? That sucked. I didn't like that. And then they die. So don't let your radish die. Plant them straight in the garden. My absolute southern favorite, what a treat, collard greens. I plant collards again at this time of year. So I always have my spring collards and I have my fall collards. I cannot go without collards. You see me getting all southern all of a sudden when I talk about collards? I love me some collards. Collards are great because you can use them just like kale. And I find they're really prolific, really productive. So this is a great time to plant collards. You could absolutely sow these in a tray and transplant them, but I find that collard greens are so fast. They're so fast and quick growing that I just direct seed these guys right in the garden and I have no problems. Next up, we got lettuce. I'm talking leaf and head lettuce, whichever lettuce makes you happy. And if you don't know what the difference between a leaf and a head lettuce is, let me break it down for you. Leaf lettuce is a lettuce that you harvest for, shocker, the leaf. Head lettuce is a lettuce that you let mature and then you harvest it for an entire head of lettuce. So, for example, in the grocery store, iceberg, that big old head of lettuce, look like a noggin. It's a head lettuce, okay? Meanwhile, spring mix, mixed all up in that little container, and it's like all these little leaves, leaf lettuce, okay? It doesn't matter which one we're talking about. Both of them should be planted right now. So put them out in the garden. But I always recommend. What is happening? Am I having like a little mini stroke? What's going on? I always recommend that you sow your seeds for lettuce in a seed tray. Okay, we are transplanting our lettuce out to the garden because like the kale and like the other brassicas, it's just like so hot. Like Tennessee is not chilly in September. It can be, but it's not always. So I find that I get much evener, better germination if I plant it inside in a little seed trays and then outside it goes. So you can direct sow this if you want, but I think you'll have better success with doing a little lettuce transplant. But you must grow this, okay? Lettuce is my #1 crop that I think anyone and everyone should be growing. It's a household staple that people eat, okay? So the average family of 4 is going through about 50 pounds of lettuce every single year, costing them hundreds of dollars. And they don't have any control over the pesticides, chemicals that are being sprayed on that lettuce. So please, 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 plant your own lettuce. Oh my gosh, lettuce seeds everywhere. I guess we're doing a direct sowing. Next up, we got sweet peas. Now, I do not have a little packet of sweet peas because I already planted them out and they are absolutely not thriving yet. I haven't even been able to find them in the garden. So hopefully those will sprout and pop up soon. But sweet peas, it's a great time. The sugar snap peas, this is the moment to try and get another fall flush. So it's just starting to get cool enough. So hopefully you get some sweet peas right before it starts frosting on you, and then you can enjoy those. Choose cold, hardier varieties, and it depends on where you're at. Obviously, you might have more time if you're in a warmer zone. You might not want to plant, but if you're in your zone 7, you could probably squeeze in some sugar snap snow peas. All right, so that's my goal. That's what I'm trying to do. I've done it before. I always have better success with fall than I do spring, but I don't usually plant them quite this late, so we'll just see how that goes, and I'll update you. But you can do it. The internet told me so, and I'm telling you so too. Next up, we got rutabagas. Now, rutabaga is a really unique crop. I don't even know how to explain what a rutabaga is. This one is Blarfbeck. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's an old German variety. Large, flattened, and ultra-fine grained, buttery flavored stems, large bulbs, and sparse foliage, ideal for tighter plant spacing, which we love in a garden that looks like this. Okay, so I do not have a ton of experience growing rutabaga. This is going to be my first year, but from what I have read and what I understand, I can plant it now, and it should be fine. And it says it sprouts in like 6 to 9 days. That is incredibly fast. It also says the ideal temperature is 45 to 80 degrees. So it needs cold. So I think I'm going to transplant this one out into the garden because I think it's just way too hot to put it out right now, but I do think I need to get it growing. Cauliflowers and broccolis, we'll lump those two together, even though they are definitely distinctly different, because some people love broccoli, hate cauliflower. Some people love cauliflower, hate broccoli. You know what I hate? I hate the things that people do to cauliflower, okay? Eat it like a cauliflower. Quit trying to trick me into thinking that it's like a carb, okay? I want cauliflower if I want cauliflower. If I want bread, I want bread. Give me the bread, okay? If I wanted a cauliflower pizza crust, I would let you know. And the answer is, I'm never going to let you know that because I don't want that. Stop doing this to me. But anyway, cauliflower and broccoli. This is one that ideally you really need to have started already. So get off your little bum. Stop watching this video. Actually, don't stop watching this video. But, you know, when you do, plant these, okay? Go out, plant them. I do not recommend direct sow. Transplant these guys out into the garden. Once they are in the garden, it becomes critical to protect them. So give them a little frost cloth, and that will also help them get through winter. But it will also help prevent the pest pressure, because what happens with broccoli and cabbages and other brassicas is these little cabbage moths land on them, and the next thing you know, you got like this giant infestation, and you're like, what happened to my broccoli? And it's just a little moth that could have just been shooed on away by just having a little cloth over top. So, broccolis, cauliflowers, this is the time. It's a little late. I mean, it's a little late. But you could still probably squeeze it in if you're active and like just get these going really quickly. I did these in August, so, you know, but give it a try, okay? You never know. I think that's something that we should start talking about a little more. Sometimes our frost date is like October 14th. They say the average is like October 21st for our zone. But sometimes it's as late as November 2nd, November 12th. You never really know. So with a little bit of protection in the garden too, you should be able to still squeeze these guys in. Spinach. For zone 7, this is a great time to grow spinach, okay? Spinach does not love the heat. It typically bolts really easily, and it's just not happy in the heat. So if you want spinach in this zone, it's now or never. I would highly recommend just growing it, okay? It's really great. Grow a huge crop of it, ideally. And then pull it up, and then you can blanch it. You can freeze it in little spinach chunks, and then you could just pop those into pasta dishes all winter long. I love it. Or you could even make a little cold frame, try and extend the season for the spinach a bit. But spinach is a must-grow fall crop. Leafy greens, pretty much any leafy greens, you're going to want to be growing in the fall. And of course, cabbages, pretty much any kind of brassica, right? So cabbages, Brussels sprouts, etc. Most of these really probably should have already been planted. But if you think that there might be like a chance that it's going to be lighter, warmer weather, longer this season, then I would give this a go. If you have some like greenhouse situation, if you've got little cold frames, you could definitely probably get some cabbages, maybe some Brussels sprouts. Probably more realistically cabbages, less realistically Brussels. Brussels sprouts are a pain in the rear to grow, okay? If you've ever tried to grow a Brussels sprout in Tennessee, they're a pain in the rear. I'm just gonna say that. Now, you might not be in Tennessee and you might still be in zone 7. You might have more success than I do. But Tennessee is its own kind of zone 7 because let me tell you, it is hot, it is buggy, it is humid, it is not great. Except it's such a cute little state, you know? But anyway, cabbages, definitely start those indoors in the seed tray, then transplant those out. Similar to the kale, any other brassicas, you're gonna wanna drape a cloth over it, a little frost cloth, before we get them out. I mean, like right after you get them out. Because you don't want these little cabbage moths coming in and chowing down your leaves. Goodbye, goners. You don't want that, okay? So just put some frost cloth protection. That's actually gonna help carry them into the winter as well. So you have nice, robust, healthy, delicious vegetables. And last but not least, we've got turnips, okay? Now, I don't feel like turnips get enough credit, okay? Because turnips taste like potatoes. But turnips grow way faster than potatoes, way easier than potatoes. They're cheaper, I think, to grow than potatoes. Because truly, like, one packet of seeds is like dirt cheap and you can just grow endless turnips. They store, maybe not as good as potatoes, but you can also eat the leafy greens. But you can't do that on regular potatoes. You can do it on sweet potatoes, but not regular potatoes. So I think it's a super crop. And it's definitely perfect timing to plant them out now. You can have the leafy greens on the top for turnip greens, which if you're a southerner, you'll probably love. If you're anyone else, you'll probably despise. But I love a turnip green, just like I love a collard green. So those are some vegetables that you can plant in September. Now, a couple of those I sprinkled in there were certainly very, very cusp, right? Like some of them, like the cabbages, you're ticking your days down. It might not work, but we're here to try it. We're here to do it. Just experiment a little bit, see what you can do. Remember that everybody's gardening climate is actually a little different, right? So I think this is something that people don't really take into account. So this area of my garden, for example, tends to be a lot warmer. So it gets a load of sun from the setting sun in the afternoon that comes this way. But I have areas on and around my house. So there's a pocket on the front of my house that stays really cool. It's not shaded, but it just tends to stay a lot cooler. I have areas on the property that tend to stay moister, a lot cooler, a lot hotter. You can actually see when it frosts that there are pockets on the farm that are less likely to get hit by the frost. So be mindful, look through your garden, take some time to inventory the growing areas and zones within your garden over the next season or two. You'll have a lot more success with knowing what to plant where and when next year. So if you have a little cold frame, you might know that you can get away with planting things out a little later. Or if you have a little pocket that's pretty well protected from frost, you might be able to get away with planting things a little later. So just know your own area. Remember that there are loads of microclimates even in the larger sphere of zones. Zones are kind of like this giant overarching blanket, but we can really tuck in and look closely and know that there are microclimates within those zones. So you might have a little pocket that's actually a little bit warmer, a little cooler. You just never know. But anyway, I hope this video was helpful. As always, you can do your own research. You can look around. Like, I am not the sole source of truth. I mean, as you heard, there are things I'm trying to do, and I'm not an expert, right? Like, I am just someone who is actively working on growing. So I don't want people to think that I'm an expert. I mess up in the garden all the time. And for me, that's what's fun. That's what's engaging. So if I'm wrong, call me out in the comments, all right? Hit the notification bell so you can see how everybody else comments, all right? And calls me out in those comments, right? But I'm doing my best. And I think that's what everybody else should do. And test what works in your own garden. Until next time, and I'm going to leave you with this. Overseed to succeed.